Hi all. This week we're going to be learning about biographies. We have covered biographies in a unit before in autumn term, and I'm sure you all loved it. So this week we will look at the features of a biography and find some information about some famous people, and then use that to write our own. The next slide here shows us a grid that's going to tell us about all the features that are required in our biographies. So we'll be focusing on structural and language features to begin with. And yes, grammar, handwriting, punctuation, and spelling is important when we start writing. So looking at the structural features, our focus would be on paragraphs, which are organized by sequence. So basically there is a chronological sequence there. Also, we are going to look at cohesion. That is, how do we link one paragraph with the other? So these are important for structure. And then we're going to look at language features. Now, the features that are very important are definitely a range of sentence openers. So not using the boring ones, always starting with he or she. Then we will be looking at adverbials, where, when, how, and also connective phrases. It would be good if you can use some direct and indirect quotes from the famous person. Right. Oh, I did miss on the first, which is specific technical vocab. This is important as you will be writing about their achievements, so you should have that vocab to write about it. All right. So on day one, your learning intention is to refresh knowledge of biographical features, as I just talked about it. You will be looking at some examples. We've chosen the first one as A.D. Adepitan, the one we did earlier. You will be looking at their features, at the features of their biography, and then we'll give you another example text, which is Muhammad Ali. You're going to look at it and identify those features again on that sheet. So the features are right here. We've talked about it, and you're going to identify them. On day two, you're going to generate interest in a significant figure to research. We will give you a choice of photographs, and you can then try and infer information about them. Now, what does infer mean? We've done it in reading skills. Infer is when you look at the clues in a photograph or text and then try to understand who the famous person is, or what have they done in their lives, what are their achievements. So you could infer such information from by looking at those photographs. Also, you're going to think about some questions that you want answers to. So here are some examples. For example, what year do you think that is? What tells you? So when you look at a picture, you might just think, okay, looking at what they're wearing, what does it tell me about this person? Or what job do I think this person does? You can also come up with your own set of questions to find answers to, and that list would be helpful for day three. You must have a detailed set of questions, as detailed set of questions as possible, because that will really help you the next day. Right, on day three, you're going to look back at those questions from yesterday, and you're going to start your research to find answers to those questions. Now, we are going to provide you a lot of information sheets on different people, famous people, but make sure you choose only one person. You will also be given a note-taking sheet, so you can write your notes onto. Make sure that you select key information, for example, their names, their correct names, spell them correctly, please. Also, where are they from, about their early life, about what they did, and their major achievements. So please remember to write in bullet points. You do not have to write paragraphs there. So you're just copying the key information from those sheets onto your note-taking sheet in bullet points. Right. Day 4 is when we start writing a biography. Now we're learning to compose an introduction here. You are going to write the introduction, only the introduction, I'm repeating, to your biography about your chosen person. You don't need to add a lot of details to it, but what's important is your reader should know who you're writing about, what did they do, why are they famous. So look at the examples on the next slide, and then you can write your own introduction. Here are some examples. Now, if we read these, which I won't be reading in detail right now, but they usually start with the name of the person, where were they born, when were they born, where did they live, what did they do, and what made them famous. So that's these three. I really liked the last one, where instead of starting with the name, they started with a question. So, have you ever dreamed of flying freely through outer space, surrounded by a sea of stars? So, obviously, this is about this famous person, Mae Jemison, um, who became the first African American woman to blast into outer space. So, I think that is important. Um, it's important to include what they were famous for. Right. Now, looking at my note-taking sheet, I have only focused on introduction. I've left the rest blank, but yours will have lots of information on it from Wednesday. I have kept it blank so that we can only focus on introduction right now. So for an introduction, we said that 5 W's are important. So who is the person I've chosen? That's Rosa Parks. What are they famous for? She's an African American civil rights activist. She was also named Mother of the Freedom Movement. When did that happen? So that was in 1950, between 1950 and 1960. And where did it happen? That was in Montgomery, USA. And what are they famous for? She's famous for the Montgomery boycott, which was a milestone on the path to the end of the segregation laws and equality for Black people in America. I have also copied a quote from the fact sheets that were given to us. Now, what is a quote? It is something that this famous person said or believed in, basically said. And I've copied the one here that says, Rosa Parks said, I would like to be known as a person who is concerned about freedom and equality and justice and prosperity for all people. I chose her because I believe in what she says. I also believe in equality and justice for all people, and I think that's why I've chosen her. Right, let's start writing the introduction. Okay, just insert a new slide. Okay, ready. Let's write our introduction. Now, if I go back to the previous examples that I read, I don't want to start with her name straight away. There is a way, that is a question that we read out, starting with a question. But I thought of using the quote. So let's start. I would like to be known as a person who is concerned about freedom and and equality and justice and prosperity for all people. Okay, yeah, so full stop and then inverted commas close because that's a quote. I would like to tell my reader who this quote is from now, but I still don't want to give them the name. Let's say this famous quote is from, not the name, so just a person for now. This famous quote is from a person who, what did she do? I'll go back to my note-taking sheet. I know she was an African American civil rights activist. So what do activists do? So basically she fought for freedom. So I would keep that. This famous quote is from a person who spent her life fighting, let's get an adverbial of how, endlessly, for the freedom of whom? For the freedom of African hyphen American, capital letters, as there are two nationalities, African and American, African American people were living in USA, and when? Between 1950 and 1960. Full stop. Let's just read. I've written two sentences. I would like to be known as a person who is concerned about freedom and equality and justice and prosperity for all people. This famous quote is from a person who spent her life fighting endlessly for the freedom of African American people. Ooh, capital P. That should not be there. See? Living in USA, living in USA between 1950 and 1960. Living in the USA. Determiner, which I had missed out. Right, I think that looks good. Moving on, I will have to go back to the note-taking sheet. So she was also called Mother of the Freedom Movement. Because we're talking about her fight for freedom, I think that would be good to get in here. Shall I get her name now? Rosa Parks was also called Mother of the Freedom Movement. Yeah, or can I change the structure maybe? Let's try and change the structure. So, also named, not called. Actually, we could have named or called. Also named Mother of the Freedom Movement. Now I get the name in. So Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks. Let's get her job in. So was a civil rights activist who became also named Mother of the Freedom Movement. Rosa Parks, we finally got the name in, was a civil rights activist who, what was she famous for? Let's go back. Yeah, she was famous for the Montgomery boycott, which was a milestone on the path to the end of the segregation laws and equality for black people in America. I think I will copy that. Okay, so I'm going to copy and bring it here. Okay. Okay, so Rosa Parks was a civil rights activist who Montgomery boycott doesn't make sense. Who is famous for? who is famous for, or who became famous, for Montgomery boycott, was a milestone. Again, I need a connective, so I could use so that's a relative clause now, which was a milestone on the path to the end of the segregation laws and equality for black people in America. I think it makes sense now. Yep. Okay, that's my third sentence. If I look at it now, I have got my four W's in there. So who am I talking about? When? Where? Also, why was she famous, or what made her famous? I've got that in. I've got a quote from. So yeah, I've covered most of it. Is there anything else we need to add? Rosa Parks, civil rights activist. When did it happen? Done. Where did it happen? Famous. I've done. Quote. I've done. But I want an interesting sentence to end this introduction. Let me think. Oh yes, when I read the fact sheet for Rosa Parks, I remember there is an American holiday celebrated in honor of her work. Let me get that in. So, Rosa Parks Day, it's called Rosa Parks Day, is an American holiday, celebrated when? On the 4th February, name of the month, capital, I need to remember, or 1st December. And why? Obviously, in honor of her work as a civil rights. She was a leader, so I'll change activist to leader, which I read earlier. Right. I think that looks like a good introduction. Obviously, I can edit and improve later, but at least it's done for now. And I've covered all that information in. Okay, moving on now. Day 5 is when you're going to continue writing your biography and you will move to your second paragraph. Now, we're giving you a lot of time to do one paragraph a day so that you can carefully select key information, add that in. Also, think of a topic sentence for that paragraph. Now, subheadings can be a bit boring, so for your reader to know what the paragraph or that section is about, you can use topic sentences. There are a few examples for you here. So, for example, you've got a subheading called The Great Outdoors, where you want to write about the great outdoors this person loved. But we've changed that to a topic sentence by saying, from an early age, Bear Grylls loved the outdoors. So that comes out as a sentence now. And at the same time, it tells us what information the paragraph has. Another one, loving sport again. So instead of just loving sport as a subheading, you could have a topic sentence. From an early age, despite his disabilities, AD always loved sport. So again, not using subheadings this time, but using topic sentences to introduce that paragraph. There are some more for you to read. And your task here would be to write your second paragraph. Make sure you begin with the topic sentence, and then start your paragraph. You could use the fact sheets for technical vocab, use these different words and phrases. And please remember, you're only writing the second paragraph on Friday. We'll carry on writing next week. Thank you.